everything that we're dealing with our children, those are things that we need to be stewarding. Those are things that we've been entrusted with. And those are things that we need to bear. We need to bear that burden, not them.
Thank you for joining us for the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. This podcast is for blended families, the people who love them, and anyone who just wants to improve their marriage and family relationships.
BKF exists to break the cycle of divorce, equip marriages, and unite blended families with the truth of God's Word. It is our hope that today you will receive biblical guidance and practical resources that will bring unity and peace to create your thriving, healthy home. Let's jump in.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast. We are so excited you're here with us today. If you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you on our podcast. If you happen to be listening on Audible, just know that the full video format of this podcast is on our YouTube channel. You can go check that out, subscribe, and be notified every single week when we drop a new podcast. Today, we are moving forward on our series with parenting and co-parenting.
Yep.
If you haven't already, last week we just kind of did a broad overview of what we're going to discuss, which is really the healthy factors for co-parenting, which is communication, discipline, and finances.
Yeah.
Again, all of this is predicated on our book that is releasing in September called Blended and Redeemed. So today, we're going to dive into communication.
Yeah, you guys. So the first practical obstacle, so to speak, is that we first must face when co-parenting is just basic communication. And, one of the things that we first start off with talking about in the book is do not ever communicate through the children, which it's a big mistake. And a lot of us do it.
Well, it becomes the easiest way.
Right.
So let me put a scenario in place So maybe you have a child who's 8, 9, 10, old enough to remember things and communicate things. So the child's going back over to the other house, and then you're wanting to relay a message to the other parent that, hey, they didn't pay an expense, or something of that nature. And so you accidentally tell the child, hey, remind your mom or remind your dad that they still owe me for this. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden that child becomes the bearer of adult information to the other parent.
Right.
And what message is that sending to the child, and how confusing is that?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's a scheduling matter or, a confrontational comment. Your child is not meant to be the buffer. And one thing that we talk about in the book is triangulation. And so oftentimes when two people, and this is a kind of like a therapist term here, but what triangulation can be, you guys, it's where two people, there's conflict or there's anxieties going on, and you bring in a third person to kind of be that buffer. Yeah. And oftentimes in blended families, that is the children. And so, making your child the messenger, again, like Scott said, or like you said, is that it puts that unneeded, unwanted stress and just that burden on their shoulders that they weren't meant to carry. Yeah. Because again, everything that we're dealing with our children, those are things that we need to be stewarding. Those are things that we've been entrusted with. And those are things that we need to bear. We need to bear that burden, not them.
Yeah. When you entrust a message to the child and they become that vessel to communicate the message, understand that child doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Right.
And they're probably, depending upon their age, they're probably smart enough to evolve the message to a point where maybe it's not the complete message, or maybe it's turned in a way that fits a different need for them.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they're put in this place of authority because the parents can't take the authority to communicate together anyway.
Right. Right.
So don't communicate with the child, and make sure that you are taking steps to make sure that does not happen.
Like you were saying, Scott, I love that you said that they don't want to upset either parents. Yeah. And so oftentimes when you put your children in that position, it creates extremely poor communication between the parents. And so when we were talking about the loyalty that children have for their parents, if mom's saying one thing and then they're relating that to dad, they might change the verbiage of what's going on. And then all of a sudden it's like the telephone game. What the first person says, by the time it gets to the person at the end, it's a completely different story. It's a completely different comment. And that oftentimes just breeds ground for misinterpretation. It can create, chaos or dysfunction, and then it becomes an argument of, well, that's not what I said, but, this is what the child said. And, again, that's why it's so important for the parents to be the primary contacts for communication and not the children.
Yeah, and I would also, I'm just going to put one more caveat in here, is I know that there's a tendency. So as the child gets older and as you look at them and say, well, they can handle more, or maybe they're 14, 15, and you're like, well, they can relay this message. It's no big deal. I can communicate through them. Understand that that's, again, your anticipation of their ability is still not in line with correct parenting.
Right.
A child is a child for a reason, and what we bear on them affects them in a lot of different ways. So don't be hesitant to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but really what I'm thinking is as the child gets older, don't think that these rules don't apply.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But the question is when it comes to communication, is if you're not going to communicate through your children, how often should you communicate? And what does healthy look like?
Yeah. And so for us, you guys, we think that having communication with your ex regularly, that's a good thing. Again, it leaves no room for there to be any questions or for there to be confusion of, oh, I thought you were taking care of this or you were picking them up here. So having a regular type of communication is important. If you have a great relationship with your ex-spouse and you can talk on the phone and text, that's awesome. Some people don't. So they rely on technology and apps and things like that. Maybe it's email. But doing it on a regular basis, it just provides less room for there to be any confusion or forgetfulness or things like that to happen.
Yeah, and depending upon the age of the children and really what's going on in their situation, more or less communication may be required. I mean, if your kids are younger, that may be something that you're communicating, on the regular. I know we have younger kiddos, and there's always something going on. There's a teacher's thing, because I'm gonna tell you, schools, man, they overpower you with all things that are going on. So there's always something, to happen, or there's, a rash here or a cut here or something's going on. So those communication patterns when they're younger should be a little bit more regular.
Yeah. And when you're like, okay, Vanessa and Scott, what is regular? Regular can be different for everybody. It may depend on the type of career that your ex-spouse is in. Maybe they have a job where they are out in a field for weeks at a time. So you're not able to get to them. As often on a regular daily basis, things like that. Everyone's situation is different. So I think one thing we need to do at the beginning is establish what is regular. And maybe, if that's okay, regular for us is communicating twice a week. Maybe it's every other day. Maybe it's once a week. But whatever that is for you, just sticking to that and being obedient in that plan to have that intentional communication. And as kids get older, their schedules change. Our son is now 16. He'll be 17 next year. And, he does a lot of communicating with his dad and then, and with myself. So that communication hasn't been often, but we do make it a point to touch back together. When we're talking about school year schedule and summer schedule and vacations and things like that, he's about to start driving. So, we're in communication with things like that. But because he is 16 going on 17, he is more involved in having communication. But again, we make sure to have those conversations so that we know what is going on and each other is aware of his circumstances.
Yeah. If you have those older kids, I know that you're probably in our same boat. We tend to be kind of a victim to their schedule.
Yeah.
So many things going on and so many events that are happening. And really, I'm going to use this to kind of play into a series that we're going to do in a couple of weeks. But that communication also deals with the finance side of it as well.
Sure.
So as, especially as kids get older, we know they get more expensive. Man, do they get more expensive. So communicating of future events, especially when the kids are older, say, hey, this is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Our 16-year-old or our 15-year-old may not remember to tell you, but they have this sport coming up or they have this, this expense coming up that we need to be in constant communication with. So that just, again, it helps ease the burden as you move down that line.
Yeah, and I think a good example, and I'll just use one for our family. So Michael's dad reached out to us early in the spring, and he knew, hey, this summer, I'm going to have this week off from work, and we're going to take our family vacation. And that was great for us because then we had so much advance notice that we could mark it off on our calendar, and then we could also take a look at his football schedule because here in Texas, y'all know they're serious about that football. So they start football camp early. And so it was good for us to take a look at all different parts, but him communicating to that or us early helped us to be able to plan, things for our family, but also for Michael as well.
Yeah. The quarterly and semi-annual, big conversations. Those are very intentional conversations. Just because, again, kids are not the only one changing. Adults, parents, we change too. Life changes. More kids get in the mix, more complex schedules, work schedules. So it's really important just to communicate, hey, listen, I know 6 months ago we had a conversation. Just want to see, is there anything big going on? Is there anything that we need to plan for? Is there anything material changes that are going on? And really make that such an intentional conversation of, hey, I just want to be prepared. I want you to feel like you can, live the life that you want to live, but let's just stay in communication together.
Yeah. And so again, you guys, just to kind of recap, you want to have regular communication with your co-parent, but also planning quarterly or semi-annual meetings, so to speak, are really important. And I would include the step parents on those. If the step parents are not included on a regular basis, again, everyone's situation is different. Some people, we have a text message thread where all 4 of us are on it together. And then there's times when I just communicate with, Michael's dad, just me and him. So whatever works for your blended family and your co-parenting relationship, having regular conversations, but also setting a time, those semi-annual or quarterly conversations to kind of look at the season that you're in, like, hey, school's fixing to start, what's going on with the schedule, the things like that, vacations, holidays. And so again, when you can sit down and do that and have that intentional communication, it provides less opportunity, one, for the enemy to come in and just breed any confusion, disunity, or disruption. But it gives you guys a roadmap of, hey, this is what our season is potentially going to look like. Life happens. And things can change during the season. But when we are intentional about communicating with our co-parent, it's just going to provide better stability and just opportunity for everyone to be on the same page.
Well, and you touched on it before, and kind of the last thing that we're going to go into in this podcast is we've talked a lot about communication, and we've assumed that this is 2 willing parties. Like, hey, we're going to communicate better. Great, let's make a plan. And that's awesome. But we know that a lot of people are in situations where they're like, we cannot communicate.
Absolutely.
Especially, in new blended family situations where maybe the pain of divorce is very, very real and very raw, or there's still a lot of, animosity and maybe even hatred towards each other. So I'm glad you talked about communicating with and using the step parents to communicate, because a lot of times that takes a lot of the emotion out of it. I know that we've been in that scenario before where it's like, hey, me and Michael's dad communicate and we have a good relationship and could speak. So it made it a lot easier just to communicate schedules and little things. So if you're in that situation, don't hesitate to lean on your spouse, be like, hey, help us communicate. But I know that there are situations where communication is needed, but it's just not healthy. So we're going to look at some ways that we can do communication through technology,
right?
So that you take a little bit of the emotion out of it. And then we're going to talk about where, the ex just refuses to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've talked about before on previous podcasts, and we talk about it more in our book, is, you might consider technology-based communication where you can have shared calendars or text message-based type communication or email, things like that, chat, there's so many different things that you can use. Just a couple that we recommend are, there's My Family Wizard, which I know in Texas is a big one, but also the Family Core is another app that recently came out. here in the past year or so, that you can use to, one, you can share the children's calendars, you can upload, medical receipts, you can do financial things through there. It has chat available where you can send messages back and forth to your ex-spouse to be able to communicate. And even if they don't respond, you guys, at least you're doing your part to let them know what is going on. And so I just want to speak into that for a second. If you have an ex-spouse where your relationship may be high conflict, or you just do not see eye to eye, you can't get along, maybe there's some verbal abuse that's going on, you still doing your part to say, hey, Susie and Johnny, this is what's going on. You guys, your faithfulness to do that and to just love like Jesus does in those situations, which I know can be hard, God's going to honor that. And at the end of the day, you're doing what's best for your child. You're letting your child know, you're letting your ex-spouse know this is what's going on. So regardless of what they say or what they do, continue to parent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you talked about that, because I know there are a lot of people who tune into our podcast that literally, when we talk about fire seasons, I mean, they're in the middle of the fire season and they're thinking there's no way I got to go parent with this person. I can't do it. They don't want to do it. So what is the first step? How do I just even start bridging the gap?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times in high conflict spouses, there's a lot of fear that's associated with the fact that I don't have my kids and you have them, or I have them and you don't have them.
Yeah.
So really what this is you look at it as an olive branch. You look at it like, hey, I'm just going to, because I'm thinking in my brain, I'm like, okay, you use these technologies. Well, how do I even start asking or telling my ex-spouse, hey, we're going to go use My Family Wizard?
Yeah.
Really what I would do in that situation is I would download it, I'd create an account, and I would start pouring into that in terms of what's going on with my children. And then I would literally just send a text to my ex-spouse and say, everything that is going on with the kids is on this app. If you want to download it and log in, great. I'm going to continue to update that.
Yeah.
And it's just it's starting the healthy conversation. We talked about communication, and that may be 20 steps down the road, and this may be step one of like, what can I do today as I'm listening to this to start communication patterns? And that may be just downloading an app or make sure you're sending an email.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you guys, maybe you're in a situation, and we kind of touched on this a little bit from part one of this series, was, maybe reaching out to, if you have to, go back into the legal system, or at least speak with your lawyer or mediator and say, hey, can we, maybe you need to make an amendment, or put it into the papers that state like, hey, we're not communicating. Is there, and have that court ordered where you have to use the app, so that you can keep that communication going. Because again, when you can have communication and healthy communication, our children can thrive in those environments. But sometimes it's not. So, any type of communication, that's still good too. Yeah.
And the last thing, or really would be the first thing that I would tell you to do, is just pray for this situation.
Yeah.
Again, I know a lot of times with unhealthy co-parenting, the last thing we want to do is start using our quiet time with Jesus to pray about this situation, because we want to think about the good things that are going on, or maybe our new relationship or this new family. And I just encourage you to pray for your ex-spouse, pray for your own heart, because all of this is possible.
Yeah.
It may not happen tomorrow, but it is possible. God can heal those wounds, and He can move you forward. So don't lose hope, and just continue to move on.
Yeah, and you guys, I love this scripture in Proverbs, and it's Proverbs 8. It's 8:32, and it says, "Blessed are those who keep my ways, hear instruction, and be wise, and do not neglect it." And so, again, regardless of what our ex-spouse says or does, we're just continuing to be obedient to God's word and what it says about, loving our neighbors, loving ourselves, forgiveness, for praying for one another. When we're obedient in God's word, you guys, it's going to march us out of any wilderness season that we're going through. And it's just going to allow us to have that peace that only comes from Him, because God is peace. And so I love that you said that, Scott. And just continue, as you're trying to build healthier communication with your ex-spouse, just remember that. Just remember that you have God's word here. And there's going to be good days.
Yeah.
There's going to be bad days. There's going to be good seasons. There's going to be not so good seasons, co-parenting. But we have God's word to help us and instruct us.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're going to complete this podcast on communication. Next week, we're going to be diving into discipline, which is literally, I think, one of my favorite topics to dive into because there's so much there when it comes to a healthy discipline pattern. Because kids, man, they try to get away with some stuff.
Yeah, they do.
So again, thanks so much for being here with us. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's encouraged you in a way that will enhance your communication with your ex-spouse. So have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Take care.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.